தமிழரசின் முதலமைச்சர் திரு ஸ்டாலின் அவர்களே, my very dear brother Kurian Joseph, members of Kurian Joseph Committee on Center-State Relations, Justice Shah, former Chief Justice of Tamil Nadu, other members, distinguished members of the gathering. I can't name everybody. There are too many important people around. I can't name everybody. You'll forgive me for that. It's an honor to be called upon to address you today on a topic which is very dear to my heart. The brief background of this problem has been mentioned by at least twice so far. Before the meeting commenced, the lady was mentioning about the background of Rajmanar Commission and so on and so forth. Point is, these are my personal views. People may agree with me, may not agree with me. It's a free country. We are fed on a belief for the last 75 years that India is a federation. I have my own doubts about it, serious doubts about it. I'll give you the reasons also. Of course, Supreme Court has little made up the expression. They repeatedly said it's a cooperative federalism, it's a quasi-federation. All kinds of expressions were used, except saying that it's a federation. Why I believe it's not a federation, I'll first give you the reasons, and then what happened in the last 75 years, I'll deal briefly with it. First of all, I don't know how many, I'm sure advocate friends are here, local lawyer friends are here. There was a legendary professor in the Madras University, Professor Alexandrovich. I don't know how many of the people are acquainted with their name today. He wrote a book on Indian Constitution long back in 1950s. Now, this expression federal structure or federal government or federal nation, most of us have in mind the American Federation. Alexandrovich says Indian Federation and American Federation have nothing in common. American Federation came into existence by a bargain between the 13 independent states. By a compromise, by a bargain between 13 of those states, the American Federation was formed. There was no such bargain. Before the British came to this country, to the best of my knowledge of history, only during the period of Ashoka and later Aurangzeb, unfortunately that name becomes a very dangerous name nowadays to mention about it in this country. The political fact remains, these were the two rulers during whose regime a major portion of this country was existing as one political unit. Culturally, there have always been differences. They will be there. For how long, I don't know. Based on language, religion, region, all kinds of differences. The worst part of it is the caste in this country. Forget about that for the time being. Otherwise, this country was divided into innumerable principalities. After the British came and occupied this country, by 1947, only 2/3 of what we call India today, territory-wise, area-wise, 2/3 of what we call India today was directly under the British control. 1/3 of what we call India today was still under the control of various local Rajas and Maharajas, like your Maharaja of Mysore, Travancore, Nizam of Hyderabad, so on and so forth. So as a political unit, the country as we know, India, that's what we call Bharat, as we know it today, was never a single political entity at any point of time. When the Constitution was drafted, we had provinces. The old Madras province. Incidentally, I was born in Madras province. By the date of my birth, present Andhra Pradesh was still part of old Madras province. A few months thereafter, it became Andhra, 1953 November. The point is, these provinces, Madras, Calcutta, Bombay, so on and so forth, they were provinces created by the British administration from time to time for administrative convenience. No kind of sovereignty ever existed in these provinces those days. A federal nation is a nation where the component units enjoyed a certain degree of sovereignty, or maybe a complete sovereignty, which by a bargain they surrender a part of their sovereignty to some central authority in the larger interests of the people of the nation. That's how the American Federation came into existence. There was no such bargain. Either the old Madras province or the Bombay province or Calcutta province did not have any bargain in this thing. It was a different atmosphere. The nation was fighting for freedom. And in the process, it is required that what form of governance should take place in a free India was a question. A Constituent Assembly was created. Members of the Constituent Assembly, experienced people, patriots, people who knew problems of the world, problems of this country particularly, and also people exposed to the developments in the Western Hemisphere. Incidentally, a little off the cuff. For the last few years, we have been hearing a lot of talk about getting rid of the colonial past. Your constitution itself is a colonial legacy. Before the colonial rule, India never had any constitutional governance or elected government. It happened all over the world. It's a question of evolution. It happened much later in India. Now, when the British came, they divided the territory into provinces for administrative convenience. For a long time, in fact, history has its own march. It all started with South India. While rest of the conquerors came from the Khyber Pass, Europeans came from south. The conquest of India, last conquest, took place from south. From here, they progressed to north. It all started with my dear brother, Kurian Joseph State, Kerala. Vasco da Gama landed there and trouble started there. Then they came to Kadalur, then Channapatnam. Then they went proceed further to north and eventually they captured Delhi. Point is, these units were created for the purpose of administrative convenience. They never enjoyed any sovereign authority, these provinces. To start with, till 1833, if I remember right, under the East India Company, these provinces controlled by the governors, Madras, Bombay and Calcutta, were sort of independent. I don't call them sovereign governors, but independent. They were not answerable except to the crown. Slowly the centralization started. Eventually a Governor-General's post was created, which the Governor-General stayed in Calcutta. In certain aspects, the governors were made answerable or responsible to the Governor-General. The Governor-General in turn is answerable to the crown. That's all an administrative convenience. Incidentally, a raging controversy right now, once again from Tamil Nadu. Right now, I think the Supreme Court is hearing. Today is, I think, is a holiday. Maybe the hearing is not there. About the authority of the governor and the governor's constitutional authority to withhold consent to the bills passed by the Legislative Assembly. For the benefit of my non-lawyer friends, I tell you, the origin is in the Government of India Act 1935. It was under the Government of India Act, Section 75 and 76 of the Government of India Act 1935. Even the predecessor acts had similar provisions. By the 35 Government of India Act, legislatures were contemplated. They came into existence. A bill passed by the legislature referred to the governor for his assent could either be assented to by the governor, or the Act provided, Government of India Act provided, could be withheld without further defining anything, or referred to the assent of the Governor General. With utmost respect to the framers of the Constitution, our framers of the Constitution blindly copied it. Sorry for using the word blindly, but the fact remains that's what happened. They copied that provision, incorporated in the Constitution. That is the root cause of all trouble. Such a provision in 75-76 of the Government of India Act was made on the basis that the states, or the provinces as they were called those days, were to be regulated by some higher authority. It is anything but a federal principle. That the minute you believe federalism broadly in the American context, believe federalism vis-a-vis the external sovereignty, foreign affairs, defense of the country, and things which are absolutely common for all the participant states. Now, take the Indian federalism, quote unquote. Forests, management of forests was shifted to the third list sometime in 47. Can't we manage our forests? Even forests was shifted. Forget about education, I'll come to it, this is a separate topic. Lot of these things, is it really necessary for the central government? Or, first of all, this word central government itself does not exist in the Constitution of India. It was a legacy from the 1935 Government of India Act, or the predecessor enactments. It's become so entrenched in the Indian administrative system that we hardly hesitate to use that expression central government, thereby giving more strength to people in Delhi. I think the sooner we stop using this expression central government, it's better for this country. It's the Government of India, yes. It's the Government of India. Now, this kind of a, I told you to start with, it's not a federal country, but I'll give you reasons. There are 4 reasons I'll give you. What is required, apart from the lack of a compromise, formation of a federation on the basis of a negotiated compromise and surrender of the sovereignty of the component units, that's absent. That's the first reason. It is an imposed so-called federalism on us, division of the states. Second, the territorial integrity. States could be constituted or destroyed or reshaped or modified by a simple vote in the parliament. If Tamil Nadu, well, whether it should ever happen, God touch wood, I don't want anything to happen like this. Whether Tamil Nadu should continue as a state or not can be decided by the parliament tomorrow. That's what happened to my home state. It's a different story. There are good, valid, and historic reasons for the division. We got together, we got divided again, and all kinds of. The point is, these units themselves are not permanent or not stable. They can. We know in this country there are still demands here and there. We want a separate state. So therefore, this kind of a situation. This is the second ground. Third, Mr. Chief Secretary, you and your brethren will forgive me for saying this. Sir, why do you require a centrally controlled service to run the district level administration? Why do we require an All India Service Officer? I don't mean any offense to you. I'm on a principle. Can't the state manage its own affairs, its own officers? Are there no? See, why should we have a centrally administered service? IAS or IPS? Now, I can understand there are matters in the first list, the 7th schedule first list dealing with the powers of the parliament. For the enforcement of those laws, the Government of India may require a machinery. Either they can create their own machinery, or the Constitution provides when a request is made, or the states are obliged to cooperate with the Government of India in the enforcement of the laws made by it. But to run a panchayat, why should a block development officer be an IAS officer? I never understood. And there's nothing wrong with IAS officers, but should it be under the control of the Government of India? That's my question. I'm not about the officers, about the system. This creation of All India Service which was a colonial legacy. In fact, this morning I was discussing with a friend of mine, a young friend, when the civil service system was introduced in Britain sometime in the mid-19th century, which was borrowed or exported to India in the name of ICS and IPS, the move was preceded by a report, some kind of a committee report like what you have, Brother Kurian Joseph Committee, a report called Northcote Trevelyan Report. The report was it was in the context of the introduction of civil service in Great Britain. When the report was being debated in the House, one of the members of the Parliament, British Parliament, he made an interesting comment. This level of accomplishment is not really required for a civil servant. If ever this report comes to be implemented, we'll have politicians masquerading as civil servants in this country. That's what he said. Now, the point, there's nothing wrong with the politicians or civil servants. I'm only making a statement which was made some 150 years back. The point is, should we may continue. It's good for certain reasons. But question is, in principle, do we call it a federal structure? That is the question I'm asking. This is the third reason I give. Fourth, legislative division of powers. This is the ultimate clinching proof of the fact that we are hardly federal. We have 3 lists. Central list, list 1, deals with all the matters with reference to which Parliament can make laws. A lot of matters like defense, currency, so on, necessarily they'll have to be dealt with by some centralized authority, what we call Government of India, or we call it central government, which we have been calling it. Fair enough. Then we have a second list, supposed to be the state list. There are some 60 and odd entries there. Then there is a third list created. This third list business is something peculiar to India. It doesn't exist, to the best of my knowledge, in any other similar constitutional arrangement, either US, Canada, Australia, none of these places. Our third list is purely Indian genius. Why it was created is a different story. Point is, after creating 3 lists and saying second list contains exclusive state subjects, there are provisions in the Constitution which make exceptions. When there is an emergency in operation, emergency can be declared only by the Government of India, not by no state government can declare it. When the emergency is in operation, the Parliament can assume any one of the powers under the second list. They can make laws. Now, how long those laws would survive, what would be the lifespan of those laws is different. But first of all, such a thing is possible. Second, by consent of the states, second list matters can be legislated by the Parliament. Like that. Now, this is not the end of it. Second list, for example, I'm sure all those who are associated with the administration of the state, honorable ministers and officers, there are a set of entries in the first list, 52, 53, and 54, and corresponding entries in the state list, 23, for example, and 50. Mines and minerals. Mines and minerals is formally a state subject under entry 23 of the second list. But the authority of the legislature, state legislature, to make law on that entry 23 is subject to the existence of any other law made by the Parliament. A Parliament can make a general declaration. It is in the larger public interest to make a law on this subject, notwithstanding the fact mines subject is with the states. And Parliament made a law in 1955 or 56, the Mines and Mineral Development and Regulation Act. Afterwards, though facially the power to legislate upon mines vests with the state legislature, effectively it is taken away. But this kind of an arrangement, if we are still willing to call it a federal arrangement, of course, it's for us. Let us see what Justice Kurian Joseph's committee is going to say about all these things. And coming to what happened from 1950. The basic document, the structure of the document, broadly I have indicated. Of course, obviously, I'm not talking exhaustively about the Constitution and its arrangements in this matter. As it was mentioned, 42nd Amendment of the Constitution was a kind of a watershed point. Huge changes were brought in the context of federalism. Education, which till then existed in the second list, was shifted to the third list. And effectively today, everything under the education, state's authority to determine as to what should be the educational policy is very minimal. Things were moved. I told you, even a simple thing like forests. Okay, education is something very important, great, that's a different matter. Let us debate about it separately, we'll come to it. Why should forests be shifted to the third list? I never understood. Can't the states manage their forests? Can't the legislature of the state deal with forests and matters connected with the forest? I don't know why it was shifted from the second list to third list. This is the legislative process, what happened in the implementation of the Constitution in the last 75 years. In the name of Mr. Chief Minister and members of the legislative bodies, Parliament and Assembly in the Tamil Nadu state will forgive me. We talk about the supremacy of the Parliament, but then, sir, the supremacy is to be exercised wisely. Have our parliamentarians in the last 75 years exercised that authority and power very wisely is a question. Well, occasionally we gather like this and discuss these things. Afterwards, we forget. The last straw is the judiciary. There is another great third branch of the administration in any modern political society. The legislative wing, the executive wing, and the judiciary. High courts are created. Supreme Court is created before the Constitution for 100 years roughly, 90 years and odd. High courts were the ultimate courts in the country. Very few matters went to the Privy Council. High courts enjoyed a great prestige and their judgments were final and binding. They were respected bodies those days. Now, post-Constitution, what has happened over a period of time? The old provision under the Government of India Act, which enabled High Court judges to be transferred, I don't know for what reason the Constituent Assembly members brought it into the present Constitution. That was there. For a long period, that power was hardly invoked. Very rare occasions till 1975, I think the entire country on 3-4 occasions, in genuine cases of judicial administration necessity, transfers were made. In fact, the introductory remarks somebody said about Rajmanar Committee and Justice Chandra Reddy. Justice Chandra Reddy was a transferred judge from Andhra Pradesh to Tamil Nadu as Chief Justice. A few occasions it happened. First of all, I don't think I'm holding a brief for the judiciary. Well, I'm not a very beloved former judge of Indian judiciary. A lot of people don't like me for various reasons, you know that. And I'm not holding a brief, but then on a principle, I don't understand why judges should be transferred. Nobody gives the reason why a judge is transferred. That's my whole problem with the Collegium and the Supreme Court those days. Somebody is transferred today, 6 months later, that somebody is brought back, and lots of things happen. Why is it happening? Nobody gives. Well, general public believes there's something wrong with the judge. Need not necessarily be always. Sometimes nothing is wrong with the judge, even then maybe somebody is not happy with him, therefore he is transferred. But the point is, what is it? In fact, I'll tell you a personal experience. When I was the Chief Justice of Kerala, The then Chief Justice of India wrote a letter to me. It is a normal administrative process. A particular judge from another high court was sought to be transferred to Kerala those days. In fact, eventually was transferred and retransferred also later. On that context, by virtue of a judgment of the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice of the Transferor High Court and Transferee High Court are also required to be consulted, whatever that means, consultation. So in implementation of that Supreme Court judgment, a formal letter came to me by the then Chief Justice. Incidentally, it was the Chief Justice who took me to the Supreme Court. That's a different matter. I have nothing against the man. I'm only talking about the system. The letter I still remember. Dear brother so-and-so, the collegium decided to transfer Sri Justice so-and-so, X name is not relevant, anyway the gentleman is no more also, he died. Sri Justice so-and-so from so-and-so High Court to Kerala High Court. Your views in this regard are solicited. One more sentence, I forgot. Sought to be transferred in the interest of the better administration of justice. Your views in this matter are solicited. Sir, it's a gathering of wise people, parliament members are there, MLAs are there, Chief Minister himself is there, a lot of ministers there, IAS officers, lawyers, all. Can you tell me what is the implication of that expression, better administration of justice? Well, my little mind, I couldn't comprehend what it is. One problem with me was, I am a bad boy, had always been a bad boy from the school days. I wrote back to the Chief Justice. Dear Chief, I neither know the man whom you are going to transfer, nor the reasons for which he is being transferred. Therefore, I can't give any opinion in this matter. This is what I wrote. This is what I wrote. The point is, we, like the traditional Indian Vedantic system, everything is mystified. Nothing is transparent in this country. Now, first of all, I don't know why should judges be transferred. One, if anybody remembers in the gathering, when this transfer policy was introduced sometime in 1983 or 84 in the Lok Sabha, policy was announced by the then law minister, incidentally is no more. He is also from Andhra Pradesh, old Andhra Pradesh, present Telangana. He made a grand speech saying that some of these send it to me. The point is this. If a Chief Justice who is there for a year or 2 years is capable of creating an empire and damaging the institution and damaging the public interest in the country, sir, with great respect, Chief Minister should also be transferred. I don't think anybody has better power than a Chief Minister. Chief Justices are there for a year or 2. I think that is the only consideration. Instead of handling people who are doing wrong things, if they are doing wrong things, you create a policy to transfer. This is how we are working the Indian Constitution, the so-called federalism. And the outcome of it is this. Finally, what happens at some stage, everything breaks. In fact, there is something called in physics. I was a bad student of physics. I did my physics from Madras Loyola College. There is something called a set theory. Bertrand Russell, the famous mathematician philosopher, said the limitation on set theory is a barber shaves, in those days shave razors were not there. Barber shaves everybody in the village. That's one statement. Second statement is the barber shaves himself. Everybody in the village, this barber falls in both the classes, in the villagers class and also the professional class. Similarly, these are all, we don't know where it comes from. When these limitations are not realized, there was a point of time, sometime in 2016-17, my dear brother Justice Shah, don't get offended, your parent High Court had 4 Chief Justices simultaneously in this country in 4 different High Courts. Well, obviously, 3 high courts were deprived of the possibility of having a chief justice of, at least if not in their own state, even under the transfer policy, in some other state, somebody is entitled to go. 4 chief, well, various reasons are there. I'm not going into the reasons. I mean, this is not a debate on transfer policy. This how it pans out. The minute this kind of systems are introduced, and that's how we have functioned for the last 75 years. These are all matters for concern. They're all matters which are required to be examined by your brother Kurian Joseph. And the last, as it was mentioned by your Chief Secretary, financial relations. Of late, we have heard a lot of debate going on in this country about the impending delimitation process and how the South India is going to be at a disadvantage in the delimitation process. Sir, please handle it your own way. I have a couple of things to say in this matter. If some big state with huge population, obviously I'm not naming, has 300 members in the parliament, it's not my problem, let them be there. My problem is, I make X amount of financial contribution to the central kitty. Whether I should get back, what should I get back? Should it be at the mercy of somebody else? Or can there be a more stable principle? Look here, every state which is contributing so much, X amount to the kitty, should get X minus. Obviously, there are certain expenditures which are required to be borne by the Union of India. For that, they need money. Because they collect their own taxes, may not be sufficient. It's for economists to go into all these questions. I'm not an economist. But question is, when all these things are made subject to voting in the parliament, the numbers count there. If that is not there, well, let some state have 200 MPs. Tamil Nadu will be happy with 39 or 40. What is the current number? I don't remember it. It was 39 earlier. Still 39? Yes, okay. Well, you have 39, good enough. Want increase it, that's a different story. But point is, what is relevant in this context is the financial distribution. That is more important. That's where it matters. And for that matter, anything. Of late, another debate going on about language policy. How many? Some honorable gentleman said people will be ashamed of speaking English in this country in the near future. At least I'll not be ashamed. The point is, whether we liked it or not, by historical process over a period of last 300 years, we had to learn English. It helped us in, though the foreign rule, how good or how bad it is a different story, we have driven them out. But then it also, anything in this universe has two sides to it. Everything has a positive side and a negative side, starting with the electrons, with atoms, electrons, everything. Now we have learned it, we have started living by it. If I'm coming here today, unfortunately, I would love to speak in Tamil, give a speech in Tamil, but unfortunately I can't give, except dining table conversation, that too because I studied here. I can't make a speech like your Chief Minister. Now, if I have to communicate with you people, necessarily I need something else, which we have acquired over a period of some 200 years. You ask us to get it, this is an emotional blackmail. You'll feel ashamed of it. So therefore, naturally, oh, maybe I'm doing something wrong, therefore I should not learn it. So don't fall into the trap is my request. Now, why did we learn English? It was imposed on us, yes, no doubt about it. It was imposition by the foreign ruler. So one more imposition will be subjected to one more subjugation to somebody else who is speaking that language. It's not our language. I'm proud of my mother tongue. I'm proud of Tamil. I studied here. For your information, if you pick up my mobile phone, there will be at least 40, 50 Tamil songs even today there in my mobile phone. I have no animosity. I tell you something. A few years back when I was in the Supreme Court, I was invited by the Banaras Hindu University Law College on some occasion. There are a lot of speakers there, some former judges, sitting judges, senior advocates. Speaker after speaker spoke in Hindi. I can broadly understand, I can't speak. I may not be able to follow high-flown Hindi, like I can't follow, very high, you quote Tirukural, I can't understand it. Normal speech, cinema I understand, that much of Tamil I know. The same is the story with Hindi also. Speaker after speaker spoke in Hindi, and all of them made one suggestion, that Hindi should be recognized as an official language in the Supreme Court, and advocates should be permitted to speak in Hindi. And my problem is, all of them said, Mr. Justice Ramesh should take the lead and get it implemented. That was the request made. Well, I was invited, what can I do? I went, sat, heard. When my turn came, I told them one thing. I come from South India, particularly Andhra Pradesh, where Hindi, Telangana, Hindi is understood, a lot of people speak. Andhra Pradesh, no. But I must have seen 100 Hindi movies. If there is anybody in the gathering who has seen at least one South Indian movie, not a Telugu movie, one South Indian movie, please raise the hand, I'll be very happy. Nobody raised the hand, everybody laughed. The point is this. Why all this thing, this existing system is good enough, it's going on. Why bring one more pressure? Impose one more language? What is the need for it? And why this emotional backbone? You'll feel ashamed to speak in English. Why should I feel ashamed about it? I don't mind learning 100 languages. It's my personal pleasure and choice. But don't impose it on me. That's all. I never refuse to see a Hindi movie. I see Tamil movies. Occasionally I see a Malayalam movie because I was there. So that's not the point. It's a cultural aspect. But this is certainly not a federal practice. Now, these are all questions. And lastly, one thing I say about when we're talking about the representation in the parliament, I'll take 2 more minutes. Brother Joseph particularly, and of course all those honorable members in public life, politics, ladies and gentlemen, the existing electoral system, people have been talking about it for the last 70 years. Maybe to get rid of all this problem, delimitation, which state has more population, how many children are being born every year, these are all problems for which no solutions. We can't stop people from producing children. Well, we can plan. Some people planned, some people didn't plan, and the disparity arose. One perhaps way of dealing with the problem is maybe think of a proportional representation system that perhaps will, to some extent, solve this problem. I am not saying I have the absolute problem, I am not a messiah. But there's one possible way of looking at it, a proportional representation system. People losing with 1% of vote in an election, virtually no, it happens, we have seen. Lose 1%, I remember my home state, old Andhra Pradesh, 1989, after that I didn't maintain the statistics and all properly. Late Mr. N.T. Ramarao lost the power in 1989 with 160,000 votes in all. The difference was his party got about 74 and the Congress party got some 160 and odd. Just 160,000 means not even one full constituency, legislative assembly constituency. And they would have no say in public life, and when you are reduced a minority in the legislative body, hardly you carry any weight there. Maybe there's a time for a second look at the system of first past post system. These are all problems which a committee like the present one. And at the end, I congratulate your Chief Minister for once again undertaking this responsibility, because it all started with his father, Rajmanar Commission in Tamil Nadu. He's continuing the legacy. Sir, I only request, in fact, I was just mentioning I couldn't complete because somebody else was talking. But then it must be literally a federal effort. You must carry your counterparts in various states. You must carry, unless all get together and carry out this will not succeed. It will remain only in this hall. So kindly make that effort. And I think I have taken enough of your time. Rest is just Joseph's job. He'll go into the details and submit his report. I'm once again grateful and thankful to every one of you for giving me a patient.